Today, I'm going to give you a comprehensive breakdown of the GSX-8R from Suzuki versus all of the competitors. We're going to look at the Yamaha R7, the Aprilia RS660, the Kawasaki ZX-4RR, the Honda CB650R and the CBR650R, rather, with the fully fared versions, and the Daytona 660. So let's establish some baselines for our comparison today. We're looking at these new fully fared, not so super sport bikes. These kind of sporty bikes, kind of the 100 horsepower and sub 100 horsepower category, fully fared, designed to kind of do a little bit of everything. And later on in the video, I'm going to show you why, if you're considering one of these motorcycles, you may want to look at something in the naked category because the value is pretty apparent. Alright, so the GSX-8R has a 776cc parallel twin with a 270-degree crank, giving it that nice characterful bark. The MSRP is $9,499. It makes 83 horsepower and a claimed 57 foot-pounds of torque, with peak power coming in at about 9,000 RPM. This motorcycle weighs 443 pounds, giving it a bit more of a portly feel. Suzuki's designed it to be a kind of a do-everything, go-anywhere motorcycle. And of course, the motorcycle that most people compare it to is the Yamaha R7. The R7 features Yamaha's characterful 689cc parallel twin, also with a cross-planar 270-degree crank. Yamaha calls it the CP2 platform. It's slightly down on power and torque over the GSX-8R, making 75 horsepower and about 50 foot-pounds of torque. The Yamaha R7 is substantially lighter at 414 pounds. And the R7 has a slightly cheaper MSRP at $8,999. The R7 has less torque, but it's more accessible throughout the rev range. The CP2, the 689cc, is a broad, linear motorcycle engine that can provide power in the entire rev range, all the way about 10,000 RPM. The GSX-8R, no doubt, is a little bit faster in a straight line because it features a little bit more peak horsepower, but that weight does come into effect, especially when you consider punchy acceleration off the line. But the R7 is much more of a track bike. It's lighter weight, more agile, more capable, has a better master cylinder feel, and overall is a little bit more sporty. It features fully adjustable suspension, more committed ergonomics, and a slightly tighter, more compact cockpit feel. It's very close to a Yamaha R6 in terms of the way that it rides down the road. I have extensive mileage with the Yamaha R7, having done a giveaway with it back in 2021. I took it on track, I took it on road, and overall found the platform to be very enjoyable to ride, if a little bit cramped and compromised for the street. So yeah, the R7, despite having a naked bike engine, features a honest-to-God sport bike feel. The next natural competitor is, of course, the Aprilia RS660. That motorcycle features a 659cc parallel twin, also with a 270-degree crank, the exact same layout as the GSX-8R, but the RS660 makes 100 horsepower, which is really spicy. With an 11,500 RPM redline, it truly is a nice peaky engine, but it does have a noticeable bump in torque in the mid-range that the GSX-8R just doesn't have. With about 47 foot-pounds of torque, it is noticeably less torquey than the GSX-8R. However, the Aprilia really wins out when it comes to its weight. It features a curb weight of 404 pounds, which is very light. But the RS660 is considerably pricier, with an MSRP of $11,499, which is $2,000 more than the GSX-8R. So what are you paying for? Well, the RS660 is very unique in this category in that it is a true sport bike. It features an aluminum twin spar frame, which no other bike in this category has. That's going to feature a lot of lateral rigidity on track and on street. Combine that with the short wheelbase, agile nature of the motorcycle, and its lightweight, and this thing is a riot to ride. One of the best things about the RS660 is that it's not really that compromised in the cockpit. The motorcycle feels lively and fun to ride, but is all-day comfortable as well. With an impressive suite of electronics, up and down quick shifter, slide control, wheelie control, traction control, and all kinds of great features, the RS660 is a much more premium feeling motorcycle than the GSX-8R, despite having similar features. So if you want something zesty and fun, peppy and playful, the RS660 might be your bag over the GSX-8R. I have extensive experience with this motorcycle as well. We bought one as a giveaway bike back in 2021. I rode it on road, took it on track a few times, did some modifications to it, highly enjoyed it, super fun motorcycle, and I would even make the case for my own personal stable for one, because they are just that good. All right, the next comparison is the Honda CBR650R. This motorcycle features a 649cc inline-4 engine that features 2 extra cylinders over the GSX-8R, giving it that classic sport bike sound. With a 12,000 RPM redline and about 95 horsepower, this thing punches really nice. It has slightly less torque at 47 foot-pounds, and it obviously is going to come in way later in the rev range and feel totally different than the GSX-8R. The CBR650 doesn't really feel like a punchy middleweight, such that it feels more like a traditional sport bike. But one of the ways the CBR650R is bad is its weight, coming in at 458 pounds, and with suspension that's a little wallowy, the CBR650R never quite felt like a true blue sport bike to me. With a competitive price of $9,799, the Honda is pretty well poised if you're looking at this sort of thing. So, fully fared, nice sound, nice looks, what's not to like? Well, to me, the CBR650 has never really felt like a true sport bike. It's very much like an old school VFR, a little bit lazy, a little bit ponderous, and that inline-4, while silky smooth, isn't quite as punchy low down like you would expect for a street bike. If the inline-4 sound is really important to you, then the CBR650R, it has to be your top of the pick, right? But stick around. Later in the video, I'm going to talk about some middleweight naked bikes that definitely should be part of your consideration if you're looking at the GSX-8R from a pure value perspective. And weirdly enough, the CBR650R seems to have more simps than Belle Delphine had in the day. The bike is kind of like Toprak Razgatlioglu, where fans will find a way to work in their favorite thing no matter what you're talking about. It's not nearly as sporty as the R7 or the RS660, and the CBR650R kind of goes toe-to-toe with the GSX-8R in terms of its do-everything, kind of heftier flavor and character. So if you like that about the GSX-8R, then the CBR650 should be top of your heap for a direct comparison. I think you're getting pretty good value for money for the CBR650R just because you do get an inline-4 engine, and that's pretty cool. All right, next up is the new kid on the block, a bike I haven't gotten a chance to ride yet. It's the all-new Triumph Daytona 660. Now, the Daytona is based on the Triumph Trident, so it features that same 660cc triple-cylinder motor. However, in the Daytona 660, they hot-rodded it a little bit so it makes 94 horsepower and revs all the way to 12,250 RPM. It produces 50.9 foot-pounds of torque, which is a little bit less than the GSX-8Rs, but still very respectable for a 660, and it is the only triple-cylinder, fully fared sporty bike that you can get. So, if you like 3 cylinders, this should definitely be one in your consideration. The Daytona 660 also has a very attractive price point of $9,195 compared to the $9,499 of the GSX-8R. I have extensive experience with the Triumph Trident, having given away 2 of those motorcycles and owned and modified them and had a lot of fun with them over the years. The bikes are super compliant, super nice to ride, and I'm sure the Daytona has ratcheted up even more. But again, I haven't ridden this bike, so I can't really quite say how it compares directly to the GSX-8R. The curb weight is actually identical at 443 pounds, which is kind of crazy. So yeah, it's feature rich, it looks pretty good, it sounds really nice, so I think it fits really well against the GSX-8R, and personally, I would choose it over the GSX just because you get that extra cylinder and it's a little bit more characterful. Folks, let me take a quick break to tell you about our giveaway GSX-8R. I have honestly been kind of blown away by this thing. Yes, I famously called it the French bulldog of motorcycles, but Suzuki's built an awesome, fun, flexible platform that allows you to lay down serious miles, tackle twisty roads, or just simply commute as well. It's a rewarding bike to ride, and I can't wait to keep enjoying it for the time I have it. Head over to yamanoob.co and become a member to start earning automatic entries that never expire. You can stack them up, apply them towards the current giveaway, or wait until we drop a new giveaway you're more interested in. It's the best way to support the show, and we literally could not do what we do without the thousands of members on the website. You also get access to our Discord server, which is easily the biggest and best in motorcycling. So head over there, sign up, and support. Thanks. Now let's get back into this episode. All right, the oddball comparison on the list today is the Kawasaki ZX-4RR. I think if you're looking at a GSX-8R, you should also be considering the ZX-4RR, and here's why. The motorcycles are obviously extremely different. The ZX-4RR features a 399cc inline-4 motor, revving to 16,000 RPM, a true super sport feeling, making a peak 80 horsepower if you get it flashed here in the American market, which you obviously will if you buy this motorcycle. The ethos of the bike, weirdly enough, is very similar. It weighs about 414 pounds and it isn't super committed in the cockpit. In fact, it feels marginally more aggressive than a Ninja 400. And I know this because I bought one of these bikes in 2023 and gave it away as well. I did a lot of road miles with it, a lot of track days, a lot of modification, and found this bike to be a real gem. It obviously delivers way less torque than the GSX-8R, about 27.8 foot-pounds of torque, but again, that peak power is almost the same, which is really impressive for the little engine. And the best part is that its MSRP is $96.99, so only $200 more, so it's competing right against the GSX-8R. I think if you want a capable, usable, fun motorcycle for everyday riding, the ZX-4 is a pretty compelling choice. It rides totally different than the GSX-8R. You gotta keep the thing on the boil, and it's a bit like the Miata of motorcycling. You gotta really use the bike, and you gotta really keep it on the power band to really enjoy it. It's surprisingly comfortable even if the suspension is non-adjustable, and even though it doesn't have quite as many features as you would expect, it does have a quick shift up and down, rudimentary traction control, a nice TFT display, and some really sweet looks. So if you're really after the inline-4 screaming 4-cylinder sound, but you don't really want a 600 class bike and you want something that's going to work well for the day-to-day, the ZX-4 is actually a really great option. Personally, if it were my money, I'd probably choose the ZX-4RR over a GSX-8R. And the craziest part is, we're probably never going to see a motorcycle quite like the ZX-4 ever again. We've never seen a bike like this in the American market, and I doubt the manufacturers are chomping at the bit to make a tiny, small bore 4 that's found in the ZX-4RR. I'm not even going to compare and contrast the GSX-8R to the Ninja 650 because I feel like that's a no-brainer. Unless you're super price conscious, you should just go for the GSX-8R. The Ninja 650 doesn't make a whole lot of sense in my opinion. However, if you're not constraining yourself to a fully fared sporty bike and you want something that is good value for money and you're moving on to your second bike, I have 3 bikes that you should really think about long and hard before you choose to pull the trigger on the GSX-8R. The first one is the Yamaha MT-09. This bike is super duper good value for money. Fantastic motorcycle, newly updated for 2024, but even if you get a 2021 to 2023 model year, which has the upgraded frame, better suspension, better handling, the 6-axis IMU, I think they're just a knockout hit. So let's talk about it. The MT-09 is way more powerful than the GSX-8R. It has an 890cc triple that's stroked out from the previous generation. It makes 117 horsepower and 69 foot-pounds of torque. The feeling from the saddle is just supreme. The motorcycle pulls hard and strong in every single gear, and it is a wallop of torque. The MT-09 is significantly lighter than the GSX-8R, weighing 417 pounds. And the craziest part is that the MSRP for the MT-09 is $9,399, which is $100 less than the GSX-8R. So it pretty much beats it in every single way. It's comfortable to ride around on the daily, it makes a ton of power, more power than the GSX-8R, it's lighter, it has the same Yamaha build quality and reliability that you expect from Suzuki. It's kind of difficult for me to choose a GSX-8R over an MT-09 if it was going to be my second motorcycle that I'm upgrading from if I were a beginner. So unless the fairings are really, really important to you, the value is pretty clear. The MT-09 is a beater on the GSX-8R. Another one that you might not have thought of but actually sits alongside the GSX-8R on showroom floors from Suzuki is the GSX-S750. People forget that this motorcycle exists because it's a little bit long in the tooth, but this is really good value for money, and again, unless you're super sold on the fared looks, think twice about the GSX-750. So it has a larger 749cc inline 4, a little bit down in displacement over the GSX-8S, but way more power and character than that parallel twin. It makes 114 horsepower compared to the 83 of the GSX-8R. The GSX-750 offers 59 foot-pounds of torque, which is comparable to the GSX-8R as well. It does weigh 470 pounds, which is quite a bit heavier than the GSX-8R, and so you might want to consider that on the bike. But it's priced at $8,849, and you get an inline 4-cylinder sound for less than you'd pay for the GSX-8R, and I personally think that you can get these for a huge discount at dealership floors because they just don't move that many of them. So if you're okay with the bike that's a little bit long in the tooth, this could be a great fit. And last, let's talk about the Kawasaki Z900. This is actually a bike that competes with the GSX-8R in my opinion because it's very similarly priced and would make a great second motorcycle for somebody. So it has a huge 948cc inline 4-cylinder engine that makes way more power and torque than the GSX-8R. 125 horsepower and 73 foot-pounds of torque is nothing to scoff at. This is a powerful motorcycle. It weighs 463 pounds, which is slightly more than the Suzuki, but I think you're getting a whole lot more go juice and you're not really gonna feel it much. With a TFT display, quick shifter up and down, a lot of KTRC controls, the Kawasaki has a lot going for it. And best of all, it comes in at $8,999 MSRP. So the Z900 is very competitively priced against the ZX-8R, and it kind of makes you wonder, well, are those fairings really worth it? Because Yami Noob just told me 3 amazing naked bikes that would cost less than the Suzuki and are kind of better in every way. But I wouldn't recommend either of them as first motorcycles. I don't think you should get any of these bikes as first bikes. You should wait a little bit, maybe as your second motorcycle. So it might seem that I'm dogging on the GSX-8R and I don't really find it good for anything. So what is it for? Well, the reason that the GSX-8R is actually very interesting is because it does everything kind of well. You know, it's pretty good in the twisties, it's pretty good at commuting, it's pretty good at rolling around the city, it's not compromised in any significant way. The bike has a lot of balance. You can ride it in the twisties, you can commute with it, you can do whatever you want with it, and it's never gonna feel bent out of shape. Whereas some of these other motorcycles, for example an R7, if you try to commute with it, it's not gonna be that fun. If you try to just do a long distance ride with it, it's not gonna be that fun. If you get it out on track and in the twisties, it's really gonna come alive, but it's a little bit more specialized and a little bit more spicy as well too. That goes the same for the RS660, although I find that motorcycle to be much more balanced than the GSX-8R. It's a little bit more well-rounded and a little bit more higher spec, but you will have to pay to play. It is more expensive. That's why I think stuff like the ZX-4RR is really interesting, because it pretty much does the same thing as the Suzuki while costing about the same, but the character and flavor are completely different. You have a screaming inline 4-cylinder engine that's going to be super characterful and fun, and so that's why I think the direct competitor to the GSX-8R is actually the Honda. And I think the Honda might have it beat because it has that inline 4, that silky smooth, a little bit more power, and ultimately it's just a really nice ride. So if you're looking directly at that fully fared kind of sporty bike thing, the CBR650R should definitely be one of your considerations. So if you're looking at the CBR650R and the GSX-8R, I think those are the most closely matched. But if you expand your horizons a bit, look at the MT-09, the Z900, the GSX-750. You're getting a lot of bang for buck there that you don't get in the CBR650. You know, you get a Z900 or GSX-S750, they're gonna wipe the floor with that CBR. They're way faster, way more capable. And if you get an MT-09, those bikes just rip. And that would be my choice if I was looking at getting a second motorcycle over the GSX. But again, if you want to stay fully fared, compare it directly to the CBR650R. And I think that one's going to be a little bit better bet. But again, the Suzuki is extremely well-rounded. It's a very pretty motorcycle. And once you fit an exhaust and get it to bark a little bit, it's a pretty sweet ride. So guys, that's gonna wrap up my comprehensive comparison of the Suzuki GSX-8R versus all of the other motorcycles. Let me know what you guys think down below. What would you prefer over the GSX? Or if you bought the GSX, let me know why and how and why you chose it. I'd love to hear from you down in the comments. If you want, join our community over at yaminoob.co and continue the conversation with me on Discord. I will catch you guys in the next one. See you later.
Oh, I love being here inside of the warm embryonic fluid of Valentino Rossi. Me and him just sharing foods together. Maybe he's gonna eat some pizza or some pasta here in the hills of Tavullia. But you know where else it's nice and warm and cozy is this next episode of Yami Noob. You can click on right over here. I'd love for you to watch it. But anyways, I'm gonna stay here hanging out. Me and him might go onto the track later, but I'll catch you guys later.